Hey, what's up guys, Control here, and today I'm here to bring you guys a video on my top 10 cards from the Witchwood expansion from a wild perspective. So these are just going to be cards that I think are going to be really good in the metagame, or just the ones that impact it really. I'll be going over all the cards that I think are worth crafting actually in this video as well, as there's a few honorable mentions. But overall there aren't too many cards that shake up the wild metagame. Start with top 10 though. Number 1. Curse of Weakness. So I find this to be a card that's actually very, very powerful, as it kind of gives control-ish warlock builds a Frost Nova. That's really why the card's so good, is that this effectively allows you to Frost Nova Doomsayer when you're playing just like Q-Block, or you're playing Giant Lock, or you're playing Brino Lock, whatever deck you're playing. It gives you the option to do that. This is just another really good tool for Soul Warlock decks to go ahead and stall the game out, not take damage and not die, and get to their Void Lords. Get to the turn where you pull out Skull Minari, and then get your Void Lord, and then not die ever. It's basically what this card does, is it allows you to do exactly that. So this is my number 10. Number 9 is Marsh Drake. So this card's actually very interesting, and one that is probably heavily underrated, I would find. I think it's really, really good in any deck that needs a dragon. It's an overstatted 3-drop, and a lot of decks that do want to run dragons can actually answer this very easily. So think about any form of weapon when you're playing warrior with it, because the 3-drop slot is where you're lacking dragons heavily in Dragon Warrior, and it does remove consistency from the deck heavily. But with something like Marstrake, you're going to have that in the list now. So Alex Straw's champion, and Twilight Guardian, Blackwing Corruptor, they're all activated way more often now, which is sweet. And you'll also be running N'Zoth's First Mate, so you will be having Rusty Hook sometimes to deal with the 2-1. Obviously the downside is pretty big with the Poisonous effect, but this is even a card that's sometimes relevant off of another Spite Historian. Sometimes when you're playing Priest, you'll pick it just for hard removal, because you can Potion of Madness the Poisonous minion, trade into your opponent's big boy, clear like an Obsidian statue or something, then go face. Number 8, Voodoo Doll. So this is a really sweet card that is kind of crazy, because it gives any neutral class hard removal for 3 mana, which is kind of insane, and you can run it as a 2-of, so it's actually quite weird that it was printed. That being said though, it's very strong and will clearly fit into Reno Mage, at least in Wild. But what's really interesting for me about this card is that it does give you the deck building decision, where it's like, hey, if I want 3 mana to remove a card and I'm playing a Pain class, and this is a very powerful effect, right? Obviously, you'd rather just run something like Assassinate and Rogue, but I mean, other classes like Druid might want to run this, for example. I'm not saying you would. I think the only clear fit right now is Reno Mage, but Voodoo Doll is a really interesting card, and one that could be relevant in the future. So I think it's pretty cool. Next up is Warpath. So I think this is really interesting, because Warpath could just outright replace Revenge in Control Warrior builds, which is really, really cool. It's a very flexible card. What'll happen a lot when you do play Revenge is, if you're playing against competent players that play around it a lot. Also, you only get 1 tick that deals 3 damage, so it doesn't beat Divine Shield or anything from Aggro Paladins. Whereas Warpath can sometimes just be used on turn 6 to deal 3 damage, deal with Death Rattles from Haunted Creeper, pop Divine Shields on Shield, mini-bots, Righteous Protectors and stuff, clear the whole board basically. It's one card that can be flexible enough to be used in your whole turn with Echo, and I think this is the right way that it's the right way, and a very strong way that the Echo mechanic has been implemented in this expansion with regards to Warrior. No, they're not too much in Standard, but this is a really nice tool that Wild's got for Warriors. I think Warpath is insane. Number 6 is Wing Blast. I think this card's really strong, but the issue with Wing Blast is that Hunter really isn't that strong. You will slot this into whatever Hunter deck you're playing in most cases, just because of the power level of the card and how high it is. But this isn't going to be a card that's going to just win you games, because you're still playing Hunter a lot of the time, and Hunter doesn't do too well. It's kind of like Mana Sheet the way you can look at it, but it's not as good as like a Void Caller or Nagasi Witch or Barnes, So Wing Blast is a very, very powerful card that I think is super strong and will be great now and in the future, and improve Hunter archetypes that are existing at the moment. But it's not going to define Hunter and make it, good enough to pop off and become one of the better classes now. Step in the right direction though, for sure. Next up is Witchwood Imp. That's my number 5. This is one that's actually heavily underrated, I think, as well. It's very similar to Marstrake in that way, where Witchwood Imp is just a very, very good Zoolock card. This card is nuts, man. It's a 1-mana, 1/1 stealth that has a Death Rattle that gives your minions extra health, which is really, really good. And the stealth part to me is what's really interesting as well, because what you can do is you get a guaranteed Demon Fire Stick on it on turn 2, or Blood Fury Push on turn 3. So you get your single target buffs in your Zoolock list, so you want to be able to stack on your minions, but you can't always use, because sometimes your minions are dead, unfortunately, your opponent removes them. But when you have a minion with stealth, that means it's very unlikely to be cleared on the turn 2 that your opponent goes into after you play them on turn 1. So I think just for that reason, and then the Death Rattle being actually very strong as well, Witchwood is going to be a defining card in Zoolock decks that prefer to have Demon Synergy inside of them. And I think this card is very, very, very good. Next up is Ratcatcher, and in a similar notion, this is a card that really improves the Zoolock. This card is very, very good with any Power Overwhelming or cards like Nervian Egg. Even cards like Dark Iron Dwarf synergize really well with Ratcatcher because you do permanently get the attack. The question for me is whether Ratcatcher and Witchwood Imp will fit in the same deck, and they might just not, unfortunately. Because Witchwood Imp leads you to want to play a more Demon Heavy base of Zoolock, whereas Ratcatcher wants you to play a more Death Rattle heavy one with like Hunted Creepers, Nervian Eggs, even Devil's Egg, who knows. But cards like that, and then buffs for your demons, or sorry, not your demons, but your minions, so then you can steal the buffs with Ratcatcher, trade up, and do really well. I think Ratcatcher is one of the cards that's going to do super well against Paladin too, and that'll be one of the cards that will help Zoolock in those matchups, just being able to trade with minion, and then, you know, Ratcatcher, trade again, and that's going to be something that, you know, could help Warlock a lot, and not that Warlock needs any help, but Zoo Warlock, I guess I should say, or fast variants of Warlock. Because we know all the slow Warlock decks. If you look at my list of cards here, a lot of these cards are for Warlocks, man. I mean, 4 of them, I think. Spoiler for one of the next up one, the ones that coming up next. But I mean, the one that's coming up next is pretty obvious, I'd say. So anyways, Ratcatcher's good. Yeah, could be really good in Zoo. Number 3, Shudder Walk. This card is super crazy in Jade Shaman, man. Super crazy. We have Loatheb in Wild. This is just a late game threat that's you know, like Nizoth on steroids, basically, assuming you've drawn most of your deck. That being said, it can be underwhelming as well, but this could actually make Midrange Shaman not terrible. This is the most interesting card for me, personally, from the set, and the one that I'm going to actually be playing with the most, and probably right away, is just Jade Shaman, man. I'm excited. This card could be one of the ones that just makes a mid-range deck good enough because it's that powerful, you know? It's a late game card that can't be cleared by a late game board clear because you will have Loatheb's Battlecry playing with Shudderwalk. It's not a targeted one, so Loatheb's Battlecry won't be random. And the random effect of Shudderwalk won't be relevant because you do just play Jades, you play card draw, and you play Loatheb. So all your effects are static. So the randomness goes out the window and you just get a good solid board of Jades, Shudderwalk, and you know, the ability to make your opponent not be able to cast any spells that cost 5 or more. So it's like Twisting Nether, you want to use that? Light Bomb, you want to use that? Nah, you can't. You can't use that anymore, my man. So Shudderwalk, I think, is going to be a really great card and one that I am very, very excited to play with. So it's my number 3. Number 2 is going to be the last Warlock card we're talking about, Lord Godfrey. This one's just nuts, man. There's not too much to say about it. This card's just very, very strong, and one of the ones that I think is honestly quite over the top and ridiculous for a class that's already so good. But it comes in at turn 7, so it's a fair power level, I guess, for the card. It's just crappy that it's in Warlock compared to another class, like maybe like Rogue, that could use a card that's really this powerful, right? But yeah, it's fair because of the mana cost, and I think this card will slot very well into almost any slow Warlock deck and go ahead and carry the game for you, you know? Clear the aggro board and just say, hey, I still have a 4/4 that can trade with whatever you redevelop. I'm winning the game. And lastly, my number 1, Book of Specters. I think this card is, insane. If this card actually makes Naga Mage a thing, I'm going to be really disappointed and sad. Just because like 2 mana draw 3 is so good. And the downside's not really relevant, even if it draws you, you know, 1 card, sometimes it's going to suck. 2 cards, it'll be great. 3 cards, it's just like, what is this? But it's going to be really good. You can play like Cold Light Oracles, Arcane Intellects, all that kind of jazz. And I think that this card will be just really good in any minion-based mage deck. Even like Exodia Mage, it'll be good in, man. So it's just, it's a really ridiculous card because the effect is so strong. And the downside's just not big enough to really matter too much, in my opinion. So for me, Book of Specters is the best wild card of the entire expansion. Other notable cards, as in cards that you could think about crafting and cards that you shouldn't disenchant, are Rotten Applebomb, Nightmare Amalgam, Militia Commander, Bellringer Sentry, Rebuke, and Town Crier. Those cards are all good enough to see play, I think, and they will improve our archetypes. But other than that, all the cards that have been released in the Witchwood aren't very relevant for Wild, and I think that you might not even need to be buying too many packs if you can just craft all the cards that I just mentioned in this video. And then you'll be good to go for Wild, because there's really not too much that really impacts the metagame from my perspective. Outside of these cards, and even some of them don't impact it too much, like Voodoo Doll's not destroying anything. Town Crier's not destroying anything. Town Crier is a really good card, but it's not going to break the metagame or anything. You know, the must-crafts are just cards like Book of Specters, Lord Godfrey, you know, Witchwood Imp, Wing Blast. Just a couple solid, really good cards, and then other ones that are just okay, but still viable enough to be included in the list here. Rest of the expansion is just very, very low power level for Wild and won't see play. Thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed my top 10 with a couple extra additions at the end there. If you're interested in watching some Wild Witchwood gameplay, I will be streaming right on release, so feel free to check me out at twitch.tv/controlboard. Feel free to smash the sub button, the like button, and leave a comment if you disagree with any of the cards or feel like I should have mentioned anything that I didn't. Hope you guys all have an awesome day, and let's enjoy the Witchwood together, guys. See ya.